Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today, I will talk about teaching across age levels. This topic is important because teaching children, teenagers and adults is not the same. Each age group has different needs and abilities. So as teachers, we need to adjust our teaching methods accordingly. To teach across different age levels, first, we must be well versed in what we teach and always consider the age and level of our learners. If we use material that is too difficult, they will not be able to understand. Second, we need to look for the correct way of teaching at every level because each group learns differently. And finally, we must remember that teaching children is not the same as teaching teenagers or adults. There are many considerations, such as their behavior, motivation, and maturity that will influence how we design our lesson. For today's lesson, I will divide my explanation into 3 parts. First, I will explain about teaching children, then I will continue with teaching adults, and lastly, I will discuss how to teach teenagers. Now, let's look at teaching children. This can be more difficult because we must consider how they behave and what interests them. That's why we need to use different techniques like games or songs to keep them engaged. When teaching children a second language, there are 5 important things to remember. Their intellectual development, their short attention span, the need for sensory input, affective and emotional factors, and finally, using authentic and meaningful language. This will help make the lesson effective and enjoyable.
The second practical approaches in teaching children is attention span. Attention span means how long children can stay focused on a task before getting distracted. Children usually have a short attention span, especially when they need to learn the topic that feels boring. That's why it is important for teachers to make the lessons become more fun and interactive. For example, instead of just reading the content from a textbook, teachers can turn the lesson into a game and give small rewards to the children. By doing it this way, even the boring topics can become interesting and motivating. Next, the sensory input. Sensory input means using the 5 senses, which is seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling to help the children learn better. Children learn better when all their 5 senses are stimulated during the lesson. By using visuals, sounds, and having activities in class, it can make the learning process more effective. For instance, if teachers are teaching about animals, they can show the pictures, play the animal sounds, and even let the children to act like the animals. This helps them to learn through seeing, hearing, and also moving in class. The third one is affective factors. Affective factors mean the emotions and feelings that influence how children learn, such as confidence, motivation, and peer pressure. Most of the children are very sensitive to their peers, so teachers need to be encouraging and positive. A positive environment helps them to feel confident to speak up and try. For example, if a child gives a wrong answer, instead of saying the answer is wrong, the teacher can say, "Good try, let's think again." This will boost confidence and keep the class environment positive. The last one is the authentic and meaningful learning. Authentic and meaningful learning means that children focus on what is useful for them in the reality. First, learning should be connected to real life as children learn best when lessons are linked to their daily life. This makes learning practical and easier to remember. For example, they can practice ordering a food at the restaurant instead of memorizing a list of English words. This way will make them see how the language is actually used. Next, the lesson also needs to be relatable to the children because when the lessons already connect to what children already know or like, they will understand faster. As an example, teachers can teach numbers by counting their toys, which make it more meaningful for the children. Lastly, children also enjoy learning when they can use it right away. For example, if they learn to say hello in another language and someone actually replies to them, they will feel proud. The small successes are the immediate rewards that motivate them to keep learning.
Now, I'm going to talk about teaching adult and how it differs from teaching other age groups. When we teach adult, we need to understand that they are already at a stage of maturity. They may not be as knowledgeable in English, but they bring in life experience and way of thinking that are quite different from children or teenagers. Because of this, as teacher, we need to apply different teaching approaches in the classroom. So, there are 5 categories of practical approaches in teaching adults. So, for the first one is intellectual development. The second one is attention span, and the third one sensory input, and the fourth one is affective factors, and the last one is authentic meaningful language. Now, let's start with intellectual development. Adults are more capable of handling abstract rules and concepts. Unlike children, they can understand complex systems, theory, and frameworks. This allows us to use higher level discussions and more abstract examples in our teaching, which is actually help them to learn better. Next is attention spans. Adults usually have a longer attention span compared to children. However, this does not mean that they will always stay interested in everything we teach. That's why, even with adults, it's important to keep activities short, simple, and engaging so they don't lose focus. Now, let's take a look at sensory input. With children, we usually need to use a lot of variety, like sounds, picture, and games. But with adults, it's a bit different. They can often learn effectively just by listening and reading. Still, to make the class more lively, it helps to appeal to multiple senses, such as sight, sound, touch, or even movement. This not only makes the class more engaging, but also improve long-term memory of the lessons.
Affective factors in adult learning. First, adults may struggle with language, but they are still mature individuals with life experience. We should respect that and avoid treating them like children, or else they will be mad and feel like they not be respected. Second, adults value autonomy, letting them make their choices in their learning, like topics or activities, to keep them motivated and engaged during the teaching session. Finally, discipline should be handled with respect. Adults respond better to clear communication than strict control. Like, if you need to see them one by one to make them not shy around their friends. Okay. So overall, effective factors mean respecting adults' maturity, giving them choices, and maintaining a positive, respectful class. Let's take a closer look at what makes learning authentic and meaningful. First, adults learn better when language is connected to real-life situations. If lessons are based on relevant context, learners find it easier to understand and more interesting to them. Second, meaningful learning keeps adults motivated. When they see how language relates to their own lives, they remember it more effectively, like you need to connect it with their life. Finally, while adults can handle abstract grammar or vocabulary, using real and practical materials make learning more interesting and useful. Authentic content helps learners stay active and truly absorb the knowledge. Teaching teens ages 12 to 18. Teaching teenagers requires a different approach because this age group is in a key developmental stage. Adolescents are experiencing rapid changes which make them more sensitive and receptive to engaging relevant learning experiences. Their need for authenticity and independence mean we should adapt our teaching methods to be flexible. Understanding their developmental shifts helps us create an environment where they can thrive academically and emotionally. In short, teaching teens calls for a nuanced approach that respects their ongoing growth and unique challenges, enabling us to support their full development. Around the age of 12, teenagers develop the ability to think more abstractly. This means they can go beyond concrete ideas and start to understand more complex and nuanced concepts. like something that are very complexible. With this shift, they can engage with theories, connect different ideas, and think about possibilities that aren't immediately visible. For teachers and parents, this is an important stage. It shows the need to provide challenging and age-appropriate material that builds critical thinking and creativity. Supporting this growth help teenagers reach their full potential on their time.
Alright, next one. Let's begin by discussing attention span in secondary school student. As students grow and mature intellectually, their ability to focus for longer period also improves. However, this doesn't mean we should always plan lengthy or overly complex tasks. In fact, even with this growing ability to concentrate, short and simple activities remain highly effective. Why? Why is that? Because brief tasks not only support varied attention spans among students, but they also allow for more diverse and engaging learning experiences. This helps keep students motivated and reduce mental fatigue. Alright, next we're moving on to sensory input. Why younger children need constant sensory stimulation for effective learning? Teenagers gradually become capable of abstract thinking. This means that although diverse sensory input remain useful, it is no longer as critical for teens as it is for younger learners. Teens can start to grasp complex ideas through language and logic alone. As a result, their need for hands-on experiences decrease, allowing teachers to use more verbal and conceptual teaching methods while still supporting comprehension. Alright, next, let's talk about affective factors, the emotional side of learning. Teenagers are highly sensitive to how others perceive them, especially as they go through physical and emotional changes during puberty. They are constantly judging themselves based on peer reaction, which can deeply affect their confidence and learning behavior. Because of that, it's essential for educators to create safe, supportive environments. Teacher also needs to actively and consistently enforce rules against teasing, bullying, and negative comments or judging, whether about appearance, emotion, or abilities. This can help students feel secure enough to take risks and participate fully in class without feeling scared. And alright, the last one is let's look at authentic and meaningful language. As students mature, so does their understanding of language. They will become more like adults in their ability to understand meaning, even when there are not many obvious clues. For example, secondary students can often follow a discussion or debate about complex social issues without needing a lot of visual support or context. They don't always need to experience something firsthand to understand it. They can interpret it through spoken arguments or written text. This will open the door for deeper discussion and the use of more sophisticated materials in the classroom. That's all. Thank you.